Hi, I'm Dr. Cynthia Clark, acupuncture physician, applied clinical nutritionist, creator of Energy Evolution, and president of Longevity Wellness. And you may have noticed that recently my channel has had a few different types of videos showing up on it lately, specifically nerdy joke of the day videos. And the reason for that is because laughter is really powerful medicine. If you happen to have ever read Reader's Digest, you know about the section of laughter is the best medicine. And you may have heard of a fellow by the name of Norman Cousins. He was the editor of the Saturday Review for decades. And back in 1964, he got diagnosed with this terrible, horribly debilitating, painful illness called ankylosing spondylitis. And he was told that he had 2.5 months to live. So he's sitting there in the hospital bed, and all these people around him are horribly morose. There's all these dings and whirs and clicks. He can't get a good night's rest. And he finally looks over and he sees his hotel out his window, and he says, all the same to you guys, if I check myself out of here and I go over there. And he got permission to do so. And the reason that he did that is because he had been a long time, he was a journalist, so he had a long time studied medicine, but from maybe a little bit different perspective. At this moment, he was particularly aware that his state, his emotions, his mood were extremely relevant to his ability to heal. And he was miserable, and everybody that looked at him thought he was going to die. So everybody was horribly morose and sad, and it wasn't the kind of place that he was going to heal, but he knew he was going to. And so he checked himself out of the hospital, and get this, it's 1964, right? So you can't Netflix anything. He has to find a projector, and he manages to get one. And then he gets some copies of the Marx Brothers and of Candid Camera. And he's just watching them over and over and over. And the reason he's doing this is because, as I said, ankylosing spondylitis is really painful. And he notices that laughter works as an analgesic, and he doesn't hurt for a period of time. And he builds on this. He laughs more and more. And as he does so, he's able to string together a few more minutes sleep at night, which builds on a few more hours, and that helps his body heal, and he's getting stronger and he's getting better. It wasn't the only thing he did, actually. He fired his doctor, and he found a doctor that would partner with him because he had an idea. And his idea was that from his studies, it seemed to him like both his disease and the medications that he'd been given were deteriorating his body's levels of vitamin C. And so he actually pioneered the use of intravenous vitamin C, IV vitamin C, in a high dose. And it took time, it took about 1.5 years, but he cured himself of an incurable disease. He went on to happily and healthfully live another 26 years, to see his children grow up and his grandchildren be born, and to live with his wonderful wife in a wonderful life. And he did all of this through intention, and it's such a remarkable thing. He wrote a book about 15 years later called The Anatomy of an Illness from the Perspective of a Patient, and he was invited to and did teach at UCLA for many years on this exact topic. So Reader's Digest had it right. Laughter is really the best medicine. And sometimes somebody's going through something, and you love them and you want to help, and maybe you want to give them advice, and maybe even you have really great advice to give. Might be talking about myself here, might be talking about kind of everybody on the planet. We all have this experience. Maybe that person is in a place to receive it, maybe not. Maybe your advice is helpful, maybe not. Maybe it falls under the category of help that doesn't help. You know, it's good information, but it's not something they can use at this time, or for whatever reason, it's not something that they're in the right state to move forward on. But you know what is a good laugh. And so I want to talk just a little bit about the science of laughter for a moment, and talk about what it does to your body systems and why it's so amazing. So first of all, it boosts your immune system, which if there's one thing that the last few years have taught us, it is how much we need a really healthy immune system. And your immune system is basically the structure of your whole body. So your bones are part of your immune system. Your digestive system is part of your immune system. Your cardiovascular system is part of your immune system. So if it boosts your immune system, it basically boosts everything. And that's pretty awesome for a corny nerd joke. If we're gonna go for cost versus efficacy, we're pretty off the charts there, right? In addition to boosting your immune system, it very specifically strengthens your heart and your cardiovascular system. There is a type of yoga called laughter yoga that I went to years ago. I went to a class years ago, and the whole class is you're laughing. And I have to tell you, it's a workout. Like, it's a really hard, it's like uses all of these core muscles. You get into this hypoxic state. Like, it's crazy. And I had a moment of enlightenment in this wildly cool class. So laughter is really, really, really powerful for your cardiovascular system, for your lungs and your respiratory system. It's also contagious because it releases endorphins, and that feels fantastic. And the person next to you, if you've ever laughed at a not that funny joke, the reason that you've done it is because of that contagion of the endorphins, because it feels good to laugh. And ultimately we know that. If you've ever been too bummed to laugh, and then you just kept watching the funny things, or someone kept trying to make you laugh, and eventually you laughed just at the sheer ridiculousness of it, then you experienced that lifting of endorphins. So if you're trying to cheer somebody up and they don't laugh at your first joke, that's okay. Don't take it personally. Just keep on checking and see if you can find what hits their funny button. Finally, this is one of my favorite side benefits of laughter, which is that it makes us more attractive. So the number one quality that women look for in men is humor. It's humor and kindness, right? It is not like whether or not they have a six pack, which is great. And like, we should all work on our health things, right? But that's not what relationships are about. I was looking around on the internet the other night and I saw a Wordle, one of these, like it takes all of the words that have been gone back and forth in a conversation, and then it puts them onto this cool graphic where the words that are conveyed most often are big, and the words that are conveyed least often are the smallest. And I thought it was really cool. This was an analysis of words that were conveyed via text message in relationships that were 5 years or more. So we're gonna say long-term healthy relationships, assuming healthy mainly because they're still around. And the number one word was haha, which is such a beautiful, lovely symbol, isn't it? I'm thinking back to some really lovely flirty messages, but they always started with humor. That's what touched me the most and what was the most fun. So ladies, I have some fantastic news for you, which is that women who laugh more, we have stronger orgasms, and we orgasm more often. So there you go. There's your health tip for the day. It's great for every part of your system. And so while we're on this topic, since we've got this great laughter built up, I want to mention that when we are in a little bit stronger state and we're able to laugh a little bit more, we're also able to process a little bit more and to take in a little bit more information that we just might not otherwise have been ready to digest. Think about having a good meal with a good friend that you really enjoy, that you feel great around, and probably you laugh with, and think about how different it feels digesting that food versus, maybe grabbing fast food while you're speeding across town, and maybe you're having to go visit a sick relative in the hospital. Like, so you're worried, you're tense, you're in a rush, and you're eating something that probably doesn't taste that good, and everything's just kind of tight and locked down, right? Like, you can probably get it in, but how much you're actually going to digest of that, it might not be that much. So if we go back to our lovely, delicious dinner with our friend or our loved one, then we can process more. We can probably, this is where our biggest risk is more of overeating, right? Like, oh my gosh, this tastes so good. I really enjoy this. I want to eat more of it. So let's talk for just 1 minute about some of the things that you can look at and process in your health. I've talked a number of times about the organic acids test, so I feel like you're pretty solid on that. It is probably the best value, overall value for the functional medicine test. If you're just going to do one, that's a great place to start. It's very easy to do because it's just a urine test that you can do at home. So simple, simple, simple. All you have to do is kind of stop drinking water by 6 o'clock the night before, and then you're good. But there's a few other tests that are really helpful too. One of them is a vitamin mineral micronutrient test, so that we can see a really full list of how vitamins are being absorbed in your body. The next one is a stool sample test, and this one is a little bit gross, so I know that, but I'm going to give you the golden tip here, which is if you ever have to do a stool sample test, then the trick is take saran wrap and wrap it over the toilet bowl. Lift the seat first. Wrap it over the toilet bowl, and then you can close the lid and do your business, and it's easy to collect the sample. I once won a humorous speech competition by sharing my experience of doing a stool sample test, because if you've ever tried to poop while perched into a French fry basket, it's a bit tricky. It's terribly stinky, and it's a not very pleasant experience. Awkward, just totally awkward. The saran wrap removes all of that. It makes it really easy, and then it's fast, so you're not exposed to the stinky for nearly as long. But the thing about the stool sample test is that it can give us the microbiome snapshot picture of this is what's really happening in the microbiome, and it can give us these neurological markers that can help us get very specific on what probiotics are needed, because there are hundreds of probiotics and some of them are extremely specific. So for example, if someone has a Clostridia infection, then they need lactobacillus. Everybody knows lactobacillus GG, which is in like 2 different probiotics and not in any of the other ones. So specific is terrific, and the more specific information that we have, the more specific protocols we can give. Next is a food sensitivity test. Now, food sensitivities come and go, but if you are struggling with, oh my gosh, I don't know what to eat and it's all up and down, it's very easy to do a little finger prick food sensitivity test. Get that snapshot, know what's aggravating you right now so that you can get yourself out of the inflammatory state. There's the environmental toxicity test. Now, this is going to be a deeper dive into what's in your environment that could be causing problems both short-term and long-term. If you've been dealing with some health issues for a while, especially if you're my tribe and you've been trying, you've been eating the best way that you know how, and you're drinking the water, and you're doing your best to exercise, like you've been giving it a legit try and you're still stuck, then this is the time that we look at an environmental toxicity test, which includes a heavy metals test, because we need to see, okay, are there molds or heavy metals in your body that you're constantly being exposed to? Like, that's great, we can fix the problem, but we have to fix the problem 7 times a day because it's in the air that you're breathing, right? By the way, a lot of times people don't want to do these kinds of tests because they're afraid. Oh my gosh, if my house has mold, then what am I going to do? I'm going to have to rip it down. So let's back up and look at some preliminary options. So here in Florida, there's a lot of dampness in our environment. There's a really, really great simple test that you can get. You can get it at the Lowe's or Home Depot, or you can get it online, and it's a Petri dish mold test. I prefer getting it online because it's about half the cost, and you can just you can get 10 of them at the same time, and then you can just put them in all the different rooms in your house. Just takes like about 24 hours to leave it exposed, follow the directions because it's a little different for different ones, and then it's going to take about 24 hours to expose it. So it only takes a couple days for you to see, this like back room in my house really has a big mold problem. The rest of the house is totally fine. One step that you can take, we're going to call this pre-mitigation, is a bottle or a container of damp rid, which just helps to start pulling moisture from the air. So that's simple and easy, and depending on what size you get, but it's like a $20 step, right? Another is a really great air filter. There's a few different ones, but high quality wise, my current favorite, because I study all the time and I learn new things all the time. My current favorite is Air Doctor. And the reason for that is because it pulls out the COVID virus in addition to mold and other environmental toxins. So the one in my house is totally over-engineered for my house, but I see the effects of poor air toxins on a person over time, so I'm willing to just make sure that I've got all my bases covered. So those are like pre-mitigations, right? We can start taking steps before we're looking at, okay, we've got to, rip out a wall or something. There's paint that you can put on a wall that's has a mold barrier in it. And then there are professional companies that come out and they do a very full and thorough and expensive analysis of your home to find out exactly where mold is. And then from there, you can look at the steps of like, okay, is this something that needs to be remediated? Or do I have a leak in my roof that's feeding to this, or a leak in my window that's feeding to this? You want to find out about those things, because mold and other environmental toxins, and there's so many different kinds of mold, but it's an insidious creep up. And I'll tell you, there's something about the energy of mold that like keeps you from wanting to investigate it. It's like, I'll just tired later, deal with it later. There's something about the energetic frequency. So if you find yourself, if you're a person that's usually pretty good at taking care of adulting, you put your pants on in the morning, good job adulting, then if you find yourself just kind of avoiding getting the Petri dishes in the first place, that's actually possibly an indicator that you may have mold. So take the big mold monster and just like acknowledge that it's possibly a thing. If you live in Florida or any place that's exposed to water, any place on the coast or humid climate, this might be something that you're dealing with, and it might be a lot simpler to resolve than you think it is, or it definitely might be a lot simpler to get to a safer place, because it's really hard to think clearly in the presence of mold, and it's really hard to take the steps to get out of it, actually. It's kind of bizarre. It's like the dark side of the force. Okay, and the environmental toxicity test includes the heavy metals test, and the heavy metals test lets us see what metals are in our body, because there's some metals, like most people know about arsenic, but there's another metal that mimics that called antimony, which has almost the same effects. So you can be getting this if you drink tap water. There's a really great website by the Environmental Working Group that you can go and you can just type in your zip code, and you'll be able to choose the utilities company that you pay your water bill to. And from there, you can see how many toxins are in your tap water. So if you live in an urban area where, you've got a lot of people around you, you can bet that there's going to be a ton of toxins. I looked up Philadelphia the other day, and there were 16 toxins that were like dangerously high, and then there were 32 that were over, that were kind of like the next level. So if you're drinking tap water, then this is a really great time to go get a filter. You can start with a Brita filter. I have never seen a refrigerator water filter that did any good. In this part of town, not only do we have chlorine in our water, which is really hard on the thyroid, but we also put a little bit of ammonia in there with it. That makes it harder to get out. So you got to use a filter to get that stuff out of the water. And then if you do use reverse osmosis, then you want to make sure that you're remineralizing, because mineral deficiency is, it'll just make you into a lumpy, gooey, non-electrical mess. Our bodies need water and electricity, water and minerals to conduct electricity, and that's where all of our neural conductions happen. So if you have a really great reverse osmosis system, but you're not taking any additional minerals, then you're gonna wind up in kind of a crazy place. And some of the stories about that are bizarre, but pretty similar to the lumpy gooey mass. So you got to get those. And then finally, there's good old-fashioned blood tests. So you want to do these in order, especially to keep an eye on your hormones and your immune system. A comprehensive blood test is not very expensive, and you can, in most places, you can get them through your doctor. Some of my clients, either there's a long waiting list to see their doctor, or for whatever reason, they don't want to do it through their doctor. And just so you know, there are these companies, this company called Any Lab Test now, where you can just walk in and ask for blood work. And the complete blood count, the CBC, is very inexpensive. This is a great way that you can monitor your lipids, your cholesterol, your hormones, any of these things, your vitamin D levels, to just get a snapshot of like, okay, what's going on. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoy the Nerdy Humor shorts and that this has been helpful to you. I hope you have a lovely day, and I look forward to sharing more information with you in the future. I'm Dr. Cynthia Clark, and this is Good Medicine.